Oklahoma, on the other hand, hasn't looked good. Oklahoma really hasn't even looked good against inferior opponents. Temple, we took a lot of negatives away from that game. Even here on this show, we talked about some of those negatives. Fans were throwing a fit saying this offense looks like trash because we didn't put up 400 or 500 yards and hang 70 on these guys. And I get it. I get it. 51-3 doesn't feel as good when it comes the way it did against Temple outside of the defensive performance. So, Oklahoma hasn't looked good, but mainly because of injuries, right? Mainly because of injuries and a very vanilla game plan first 2 weeks. That's obviously one of the big ones. But, again, with those injuries, we're expected to see Troy Everett. That report, I was literally waiting to record this. That's why it's coming out later than I anticipated. So apologies for that. But I finally saw the injury report, and Troy Everett, expected to see him in the game. That's awesome to put him back on the offensive line. Questionable but hopeful is Jake Taylor and Branson Hickman. With Branson Hickman and Troy Everett coming back in, that could move Jacob Sexton and Jake Taylor back to their normal positions where they're comfortable and they're good. That could make that offensive line, if both those guys, Branson Hickman, first off, not having to rely on your fourth center would be a very good thing for Oklahoma, right? But if we're able to get Branson Hickman in there and Troy Everett in there and get this line moved back to the spots that they really feel most comfortable, who's to say that our offensive line doesn't look light years better? I don't know that that's the case. Maybe they don't, and maybe we are still battling injuries. Maybe Jake Taylor and Branson Hickman, because they're more hopeful to enter the game, and questionable, but we'd like to see him in there. And I think ultimately, I think if there's anybody that's questionable or probable, I think they're gonna be in this game, unless it's like, hey, we thought we would be able to put him in there, so we put him as questionable, and then we found out that, man, like, it's really not looking good. We should have marked them out because we can't put them in. It's gonna take something major to keep these guys out of this game, because this is a huge game for Oklahoma. It's a huge game for Tennessee too, because this finally marks it gets rid of that rhetoric that, oh yeah, but you put up 70 points against Kent State. It removes all doubt if Tennessee wins this game, and especially if they're able to cover that spread and then some. It removes every bit of doubt, and Tennessee is now national contender, like national championship contender, 100% right up there, possibly moving up in the top 3. Who knows? Just saying, this is a huge game for both teams. Huge. Kendall Dolby is going to be back at that cheetah position. He's expected to be back in. That is huge. If you guys don't know Kendall Dolby, don't know what he means to this defense, he's going to be, we'll talk about him. He's going to be huge. He's going to be huge in so many ways. We're hoping to see Gentry Williams back on the field soon, but as of right now, he's listed as out in this injury report that just released tonight as I'm recording this. It just released right before I hit record, so I had to change some of my notes. He's the second best cornerback on this team, although I'm very happy with what we saw from Des Malone. Super excited to see more from him. We've seen other DBs step up and make big-time plays that makes me feel very confident in this secondary, where I was questionable on this secondary, to say at least just a little bit questionable, just because we have a lot of guys that we haven't seen a whole lot. I'm feeling very confident about them, even moving into this game. Wide receivers are back in the game. We got Nick Anderson and Andrell Anthony both coming back into the game. That's awesome. They're both expected to be back out there. We thought maybe Nick Anderson would be back out there last week because he was stretching. Andrell Anthony, I'm not really sure. We haven't heard anything, honestly. We really haven't heard anything about him. My take on this, and you can take it with a grain of salt because I don't know for certain because, again, we haven't heard directly from the mouths of the people making the decisions. But my take on this is that Nick Anderson was probably fine week 2. We could have put him in. Andrell Anthony, we saw him a little bit week 1. We didn't see him after that. Probably just to get his feet wet, get him back, work off that rust. And I think he was able to do that without really doing too much in that game. But, hey, guys, we don't need you in these first 3 games. And I think Nick Anderson was it could get worse if we put you in week 1 against Temple, so let's not risk it. Week 2, I think you're fine, but we're going to keep you out. Week 3, go out there and stretch and everything, but guess what? We're still going to keep you out because we don't need you to beat Tulane. But if we need you, we're going to put you in there because Tulane is a tough team. Now, we have to win. This is a must-win game. And you can afford being banged up a little bit more against Auburn next week than you can against Tennessee, and that's no disrespect to Auburn. I think we have to treat Auburn as a very, that's the next biggest game. But you can afford that, because then let's say we just use you when needed against Auburn and come out of that with a win. I think we could possibly do that, especially looking at where Auburn is now. Earlier in the season, week 1, I would have said, no, we need you against Auburn too. We got a bye week after that, then we go to Texas. So that being said, we have to play our playmakers in this game, and I think that was the thing. Cool little note, an extra to throw on with kind of all of the narratives that go into this game. This will mark the first game that Oklahoma closes as an underdog of a field goal or more since they upset Nebraska, number 1 Nebraska, back in 2000. Guess who was the quarterback of that game? Josh Heupel. Guess who the defensive coordinator for Oklahoma was in that game? Brent Venables. Really cool. When you look at all of the little hidden nuggets in this game, I'll try to keep on searching for more that are really fine-tuned and just kind of crazy to throw out there. That was one that I found that I thought was absolutely worth bringing up. Hey Sooner fans, did you enjoy this video? Well, go ahead and hit that like button and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. What are you doing if you've made it this far and haven't already? You should be able to find that subscribe button over here. And then if you want to see full episodes, we've got those up here and clips right down here. So go check that out. But we thank you all so much for all the love, all the support. We'll catch you next time. Boomer.